Hello again, do-it-yourselfers. Welcome to Rob's Repair Shop. Winter is coming, as they say, and we just got word it's going to be 25 degrees tonight here in 1st of November in Middle Tennessee. That means we need to blow out the sprinklers. It's going to be a last-minute job, but it's got to be done, or else you'll be replacing all your sprinkler heads. So we'll be going over how we're going to do that, the equipment we're going to need, and the best way to get it done with the least amount of pain. For starters, taking a look at our equipment. It's got a Sears air compressor. You can see it's 150 psi max and a maximum of 7 cubic feet per minute at 40 psi, which should be good enough for our needs. Over here is a small household compressor. It'll generate 100 psi, but it won't have near enough the cubic feet per minute to blow the water out of your sprinkler line, so I recommend against using one of these. And then for blowing out some garden hoses and other things where it'll be a little difficult to roll that compressor, I'm going to use this compressed air tank. Now, note about the compressor you're going to use. If you go on the website of the sprinkler companies, they'll recommend that you don't run the pressure too high. And the reason for that is the water pressure in your house is probably going to be around anywhere between 50, 60, 70 pounds. 80 is getting kind of high. But if you run 150 pounds of air through there, you're going to blow your pipes right apart. So what you're going to try to do is use a lower pressure with a higher volume, which is going to blow the water out. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to take this the hose end and hook it directly up to the air hose and hook it directly up to my water system. I have a hose bib, and I'm going to use a fitting like this, which is a hose bib end, and then it'll go to a quick connect to hook to the air hose. Now there's a couple of different types of these air hose connectors, quick connect, so make sure you have the right one. If you have the wrong one, it won't work. So here's a example of the one we're going to be using, and here's a different style. But whatever style you use, just make sure that the two hook up and you get a good connection. We're going to start this process by turning off the water at the source. If you don't know where your main water shutoff is, you're going to have to go search for it. As you can see, sometimes it's covered over and a little bit obscured. As it happens, I had to rebuild this myself a couple years ago, and so I happen to know where it's at and how it's configured. I actually put that valve in to help drain it out. So what we're going to do is reach in here, turn off the water supply to the sprinkler system, and then I'm going to open this up and just let it drain out of the pipe from uphill. As it goes up the hill, and then as soon as I open up the valve at the top of the hill, it'll drain on out from the service. Okay, up here next to the house, we'll find our backflow device. As you can see, I put it in a hose bib. So what I'm going to do here is undo my hose bib and then open this up. What's going to happen is pressure is going to flow out of the system. But if we go back down the hill, we'll also see the water running back down the hill out of the valve that opened downhill. Here's our sprinkler control box. I have access to all the control valves in here. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the air onto the system, and then I'm going to control a valve open, and then once the air is on the system, I'll open up that hose bib and allow the air into the system. So at no time is there going to be static pressure going into the system to burst any pipe joints. It'll always be open. Okay, at this point we have the air hose hooked up to the compressor, and on the other side it's hooked into my hose bib with the valve closed. There's a little bit of air leakage, but not that much. I've also closed off the backflow device so we don't overpressure it with air. You're going to want to bring that thing in the wintertime. unless you make sure it's really cleaned out, because they're expensive to replace. I have these quick disconnects, and I take the whole thing in during the winter time. So now let's go ahead and get started. All right, we come on over to our box. We can go ahead and select a single station. Let's go ahead and select something we can get a good video. Station number 6. Take it back to run. So you can see it's commanding the valves to be open. At this point, just open up the air and allow some air into the system, and there you got it. You can see that the sprinklers themselves are starting to fire as air is evacuated from the system, and they'll go for a few seconds. And you can hear them start to run out of water as the water's pumped out. Once your sprinkler at the lowest point in the system starts blowing air, that means you've got all the water evacuated out of the system. And you can hear the last little bits of water exiting the system. So some of these circuits, there won't be much water in them at all, as the water tends to run downhill and run out of the circuit. But you do need to get the ones with low spots. One thing to remember, it's not so much the water in the pipe per se as the water in the actual sprinkler head. I have all the these gear-driven heads. And there'll be just a little bit of water in that gear head, sprinkler head, and then it freezes. You're buying a new sprinkler head for 10 or 15 bucks or whatever they cost. Once they start blowing air, you know it's pretty well clean. Whoa, almost got wet. Fair amount of water in this circuit. Now the last couple of things we need to do once we get all the sprinkler lines blown out is we've got an autofill on the pool here, one for the pool and one for the spa. We're going to want to turn these on and then run some air through there. So this pipe itself, hooked to the same circuit, will blow out. And then lastly, we have a shower, a pool shower. And hose bib that we're going to want to blow out. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn that on, and then I'll throw the air on it, and that should blow it all the way out. Then we should be close to done. Now, I don't bring all my hoses in for the winter, but you want to make sure that you unhook them from the house. And that's the draining hose bib, so it won't freeze. If it's hooked up and water stays in there, it might freeze and break. Otherwise, this is designed so the water stays inside where the house is warm. But you do have to get the water out of the hose. There's a fitting in this hose reel that'll bust if it freezes. So I just hook my tank up to it, run some air into it. And there you have it. Good thing this camera is waterproof. So the last thing we're going to do is we take this backflow device. We have these quick disconnects. We just take it off and take it inside for the winter. And you can see it just leaves the uprights there, and I'm going to put some duct tape over them to keep stuff from getting down in there. And that's pretty much it. You're pretty much done. You've winterized, you've blown out all your fittings and sprinkler hoses, whatnot. Now it's just time to go chop some wood and make a fire. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode of Rob's Repair Shop. This is Captain Rob signing off. We'll see you next time.